Welcome to our deep dive today,
Okay.
where we're diving into a really fascinating approach to teaching science.
Yeah.
It's called three-dimensional learning.
Mm.
Now, when you hear that,
Right.
you might be thinking
Yeah.
classrooms with like holographic projections and virtual reality,
Oh, wow.
but it's not quite that futuristic,
Okay.
though it's definitely innovative, and we're going to break down
Yeah.
what three-dimensional learning looks like,
Uh-huh.
especially for those K through 8 students,
Oh, yeah.
using excerpts from actual science standards documents.
Gotcha.
So we're going right to the source
All right.
for this deep dive.
Perfect.
And the best part is,
Yeah.
it's not just about memorizing facts.
Right. Yep.
It's about really equipping students to think like scientists, to really do science,
Yes.
and to see how science connects to everything around them.
Absolutely.
So let's get to the core of it.
Okay.
Three-dimensional learning,
Right.
well, has 3 dimensions.
Makes sense.
It might sound a bit complex,
That's-
but it's actually surprisingly intuitive.
Yeah.
We're talking about science and engineering practices,
Okay.
cross-cutting concepts,
Got it.
and disciplinary core ideas.
Okay.
Those are the 3 dimensions.
Picture us building a house.
Mm,
You need the bricks and mortar.
okay.
Those are your disciplinary core ideas, the fundamental knowledge
Right.
in each scientific field. Then you need the framework,
Huh.
the beams and the walls.
Okay.
That's where the science and engineering practices come in.
Right.
The skills scientists use to investigate the world
Uh-huh.
and to hold it all together.
Yeah.
You need the crossbeams, the connections that make the structure strong.
Right.
Those are your cross-cutting concepts.
Gotcha.
The big ideas that link different areas of science.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
So instead of just handing students a finished house,
Right.
we're giving them the tools and the blueprint
Exactly.
to build their own understanding.
Yes, and that's what makes this so exciting. Let's start with those science and engineering practices.
Okay.
You might be surprised to learn that even first graders are tackling engineering challenges.
Oh, wow.
They're designing devices to communicate across the room using light or sound,
Okay.
which forces them to think deeply about how those elements work.
So they're not just learning about light and sound, they're putting that knowledge to work.
Precisely. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
As students progress, those practices become more complex.
Yeah.
By fourth grade, they're analyzing and interpreting data
Mm.
to understand weather patterns, maybe even using digital tools. And by middle school,
Oh.
they're constructing explanations and designing solutions for real-world problems.
Wow.
Like building devices that control heat flow using chemical reactions.
That's a far cry from the science classes I remember.
right.
It sounds like they're really getting to experience the thrill of discovery.
They absolutely are. And it's not just about isolated experiments.
Okay.
These science and engineering practices are intertwined with the other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
That's where those cross-cutting concepts come in,
Yeah.
the threads that connect the tapestry of scientific knowledge.
Okay, unpack that for me a bit.
Yeah.
What exactly are cross-cutting concepts?
They're the big ideas that pop up across different scientific disciplines,
Uh-huh.
helping students see the bigger picture.
Okay.
Think about cause and effect, for instance.
Yeah.
A kindergartner might learn how a plant's growth is affected by the amount of sunlight it receives,
Okay.
while a middle schooler could investigate how different factors influence electric and magnetic forces.
Right.
It's the same underlying concept applied to different contexts.
So it's like giving them a mental framework for understanding how the world works,
You got it.
regardless of this specific science topic.
And there are several other cross-cutting concepts.
Okay.
Structure and function is another great example. We
Okay.
see it everywhere.
Yeah.
From the shape of a bird's beak determining what it can eat, to the design of airplane wings influencing their lift.
Right.
And in middle school, students might explore how the complex structure of a cell dictates its function,
Okay.
bringing a whole new level of meaning to biology.
It's amazing how those connections can make learning so much more meaningful.
Right.
It's not just memorizing facts.
Yeah.
It's understanding the why behind them.
Exactly. And that's where those building blocks we talked about earlier come in,
Yeah.
the disciplinary core ideas.
Uh-huh.
These are the essential pieces of knowledge within each scientific field,
Okay.
building on each other as students move through their education.
So it's like starting with a simple foundation
Yeah.
and adding layers of complexity over time.
Exactly.
What kind of examples are we talking about here?
Well, in kindergarten, students might learn about the basic needs of plants and animals.
Okay.
By fifth grade, they're digging deeper,
Yeah.
maybe supporting the argument that plants get most of their building material from air and water, not soil.
Wow.
which often surprises people. And in middle school, those core ideas become even more sophisticated
Okay.
as they explore things like cell division, the cycling of matter in ecosystems,
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
forces that shape our planet.
I'm starting to see how all these dimensions, the practices, the concepts, and the core ideas work together.
Yeah.
But how does this actually play out in a real classroom?
Hmm. That's the beauty of it. It's all about integration. Instead of teaching these dimensions in isolation, they're woven together in the classroom.
Okay.
Let's picture a third-grade class studying weather patterns, for
Okay.
example. They might start by collecting data on temperature, wind speed,
Uh-huh.
and rainfall.
Ah, so they're putting those science and engineering practices to work right from the start. I
Exactly.
can almost see them out there with their rain gauges and windsocks.
Exactly. And as they're collecting data, they start noticing patterns in relationships.
Yep.
Maybe temperature and wind speed tend to increase together, or heavy rainfall often follows a drop in barometric pressure. They're starting to see those cross-cutting concepts of patterns and cause and effect in action.
So they're not just recording numbers, they're starting to think about what those numbers actually mean.
And all of this is happening while they're learning about the water cycle, different types of clouds,
Uh-huh.
and how the Earth's atmosphere works, those disciplinary core ideas that build their foundational knowledge.
It sounds like a completely different way of experiencing science. Instead of just reading about weather in a textbook, they're becoming little meteorologists themselves.
Precisely. And that's what makes this so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just about what they learn,
Yeah.
but how they learn. Let's jump ahead to middle school now.
Okay.
Remember those complex climate models we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, those aren't just theoretical exercises.
Right.
Students are actually building them,
Wow.
using physical materials, diagrams, even computer simulations to visualize how factors like the Earth's rotation and uneven heating create global weather patterns.
That's incredible. It's like taking something incredibly abstract and making it tangible.
And in the process, they're strengthening their understanding of the cross-cutting concept, systems and system models, how smaller components interact to create a larger, more complex whole.
You know, thinking back to my own science education, it feels like something was missing. We learned facts, we did experiments, but it wasn't always clear how it all fit together.
That's a common experience, unfortunately.
And that's what three-dimensional learning aims to address.
Yeah,
It's about making those connections explicit,
right.
helping students see the bigger picture and understand that science isn't just a collection of isolated facts, but a dynamic way of exploring the world around us.
It's about nurturing a love for learning and a desire to understand how things work.
Absolutely.
I'm really starting to grasp the power of this approach.
Good.
But what does this mean for the future of science education? Where do we go from here? So we've covered so much in this deep dive, from those hands-on experiments in elementary school to the complex climate models in middle school.
It's clear that three-dimensional learning has the potential to transform how we teach and learn science.
It really does.
But is this just a passing trend, or is this truly the future of science education?
I firmly believe this is not a fad.
Okay.
Three-dimensional learning represents a fundamental shift in how we approach science education, and that shift is here to stay. We're moving away from rote memorization and embracing a more engaging and meaningful way of learning.
That makes sense, but it sounds like a pretty big change.
It is.
What needs to happen to make sure this actually takes root in classrooms across the country?
You're right. It does require a significant shift. And a key piece of the puzzle is supporting teachers.
Yeah.
Professional development is crucial,
Right.
not just in terms of learning new techniques, but in helping teachers embrace a new mindset.
So it's not just about giving them a new toolbox.
Right.
It's about helping them see themselves as facilitators of learning,
Yes.
rather than just dispensers of information.
Exactly.
So-
Teachers need the resources and the confidence to create learning environments where students are encouraged to ask questions, explore ideas, and make connections.
Right.
They need to feel empowered to weave those three dimensions into their lessons in a way that feels natural and engaging.
It's about fostering that sense of wonder and curiosity that we all have as children.
Yes.
I know for me, that's what made learning truly exciting, when it stopped feeling like work and started feeling like discovery.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what's so exciting about this approach. It has the potential to revolutionize not just science education, but education as a whole. Think about it, engaging in practices, connecting concepts across disciplines, and building deep understanding.
Right.
These aren't just science skills, they're life skills.
It's about equipping students for the future, no matter what path they choose.
Exactly. We're not just creating future scientists and engineers, we're creating critical thinkers, problem solvers, and lifelong learners.
Yeah.
And that's something worth striving for in every subject in every classroom.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been.
You've really opened my eyes to the power of three-dimensional learning.
I'm glad to hear that.
So for our listeners who are feeling inspired and maybe a little overwhelmed, what's the one thing you hope they take away from this conversation?
I'd encourage you to think back to a science topic you found boring or irrelevant in school and ask yourself,
Okay.
how might a three-dimensional approach have made it more exciting, more meaningful, more relevant to your life?
Yeah.
Could you have engaged in hands-on investigations?
Hmm.
Could you have uncovered the connections to other subjects and to the world around you?
That's such a powerful challenge. It's about rekindling that sense of wonder and seeing science not as a collection of facts to be memorized, but as a dynamic process of exploration and discovery.
Exactly. And remember, the resources we've provided in the show notes can help you explore these ideas further and find ways to support three-dimensional learning in your own community.
This has been such a great deep dive. Thank you for joining us today on this deep dive into the fascinating world of three-dimensional learning. We hope you've come away with a renewed appreciation for the power of science education to shape young minds and prepare them for the future.
Thank you for having me.